Professor Thun is director of the core unit eHealth and Interoperability, CEI, at the Berlin Institute of Health. Professor Thun is also a full professor for information and communication technology in healthcare at the University of Applied Sciences, Niederrhein. She holds an MD degree and a PhD degree in engineering. Professor Thun's main research areas are standardization and semantic interoperability. She previously worked at the German Institute for Medical Documentation and Information, DIMIDI, that is now merged with the Federal Institute for Drugs and Medical Devices, BfArM. She coordinated national and international projects such as the FP7 European Patient Smart Open Services Project, EAP-SOS, for cross-border healthcare in the EU, and the Horizon 2020 SSCT Consortium for better semantic interoperability of eHealth services. Professor Thun is chair of the working group Terminology in the DIN Standards Committee, Medicine, DIN NAMED. The committee is responsible for national standardization and represents Germany at the European Committee for Standardization, CEN, and the International Organization for Standardization, ISO, in several areas, including health informatics. Professor Thun is chair of the Federal State Committee Health Level 7, HL7 Germany, that works on implementation of the HL7 standard for health data exchange. She is a past user chair and acts as leading expert in the domain pharmacy at the organization integrating the healthcare enterprise IHE Germany. In her presentation, Professor Thun will explain why interoperability of medical data is fundamental to digital innovation. She will demonstrate how interoperability facilitates digital transformation in research and medicine and how this benefits patients. And now, Professor Thun, it is your floor.
Good ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, dear students, I welcome you to my presentation about why translational medicine depends on interoperability. And I'm going to talk about interoperability and some fields, fair data, standards and terminologies, and about some very important projects in Germany. Here's a definition of interoperability. It's not only important that systems exchange information, they have to be able to use this information in a meaningful way. Different levels describe different aspects of interoperability. So like in the ground, you find the technical level, then a syntax level, semantics, organization, and even social levels. So how can interoperability make life easier? Here are some points. It can enhance reproducibility of research, improve reusability of scientific data across projects, domains, and even countries, harmonize data sets to enable integration across studies, and make data reusable not only for humans, but also for machines and scientists. So digital medicine provides high-quality healthcare services, avoids errors, increases patient safety, and empowers patients. Physicians and scientists need data for information retrieval, analysis, and modeling. Interoperable systems enable health professions to work and communicate efficiently. So if real-world data are interoperable, they can be used for large-scale observational studies at regional, national, and global level. Such studies can address epidemiological questions and public health concerns, providing up-to-date insights into prevalence and incidence of diseases like pandemic, typical treatment pathways of patients or gaps in care. And real-world data are a treasure trove for the AI and machine learning methods. But the largest barrier for applying AI and big data to medicine is not a lack of algorithms, but a lack of suitable data for developing AI and big data applications. Being able to find patterns and correlations in high-dimensional data sets, these methods can help researchers to identify interesting new research hypotheses, which can be investigated in clinical trials. And if health data is structured according to international standards, data are much easier to analyze and efforts needed for data cleaning and pre-processing are reduced. This can speed up research. It can also improve research quality because analysis can be programmed by experts worldwide. We need international cooperation here. So in sum, interoperability can generate new medical insights. This can advance translational medicine and help to move research discoveries from the lab to the point of care. At a larger scale, it can drive evidence-based practices in medicine and accelerate their implementation into public health policies. So I want to show you now examples out of these 4 fields. First of all, communication and connectivity. As a first example, I will show you a current communication protocol and interface between devices and the hospital information system. The protocol HL7 version 2, which I'm showing here, allows systems to exchange data with each other and with EHRs. Unfortunately, this is not used everywhere. It's not supported by communication servers, or it is not bought by the management. And the protocol offers so many freedom that dialects occur in every implementation. And in addition, semantic content such as LOIC or SNOMED are not used. Each vendor uses its own language, as you can see here in this example. So therefore, we have to use standards, like the 11073 SDC, the Service-Oriented Device Connectivity Standard Family. These standards define a communication protocol for point-of-care medical devices, and the core standards consist of a transport standard called Medical Device Communication Profile for web services, a domain information service model, and architecture and binding definitions. A new implementation guide, which we developed together with the vendor, describes how to use the standard FHIR to transfer measurement data here in this field. And FHIR itself supports binding to medical terminologies like LOIC, SNOMED, IDMP for pharmaceutical products, and EUCOM. So coming to the next area, artificial intelligence. Here I have an example for you, which describes the role of DICOM in artificial intelligence for skin diseases. And the ability of DICOM to encode relevant metadata and afford interoperability with the digital health ecosystem has driven the interest in adopting of DICOM for dermatology, and not only for radiology or cardiology, but here in this field it's very important too. DICOM can improve AI workflows by encoding derived objects and the efficient curation of multi-institutional data sets for machine learning training, testing, and validation. This can be achieved using DICOM mechanisms such as standardized image formats and metadata-based image retrieval and de-identification protocols. Coming to the area research. So within translational medicine, we need to work with data from research and data from care. So since many years, we have been concerned about the question on which data model should we use for healthcare. And on May 1st this year, key stakeholders in international standardization joined forces to enable research with healthcare data and therefore enable translational medicine. So Odyssey, I don't know if you know Odyssey already. Odyssey is an international network. It's not a standard yet, but a network of researchers to bring out the value of health data through large-scale analytics. And HL7 is a standard development organization dedicated providing a comprehensive framework and standards for the exchange, integrating, sharing, and retrieval of electronic health information. And this is the organization that provides the standard FHIR. And there are so-called affiliations in each country, and the affiliation of HL7 Germany is here in Berlin. So what is an SDO, a standard development organization, and do they work together? Because there are so many Since 2017, they joined forces, and there's a global initiative of SDOs, which is called Joint Initiative Council. So the Council for Global Health Informatics Standardization is formed to enable interoperability of information and process across health domains, and they support efficient delivery of safe, coordinated, accountable, high-quality health services to individual communities and population. And you all know ISO and CEN, and within the TC215, this is medical informatics, and CEN TC251, we developed more than 360 standards for medical informatics. Besides that, we have a huge world of standards within the clinical trial world, and here CDISC is very important, like the Clinical Data Interchange Standards Consortium. That's an SDO as well. You know, DICOM is used in the field of radiology. GIS1 is for the identification of products and people and even locations. IHE is a community from the industry, and they try to implement most of the time HL7 standards and to test the standards in real-world data scenarios. And then you see LOINC and SNOMED. These are huge organizations that form terminologies worldwide. So beside that, you see the Global Alliance for Genomics and Health. The Global Alliance for Genomics and Health is a policy framing and technical standard setting organization seeking to enable responsible genomic data sharing. The goal is a precise targeting the real-time exchange of information based on full interoperability enabled by global standards. So this is the bioinformatics world, and they cooperate since 2 years with the other world, from the medical informatics world, and so we build our first standards. And so they have a roadmap, which use cases they want to work on in the future. And the most important strategic product of the JIC in the past was or is still the International Patient Summary. This is an ISO standard. This is a project as well. It was a project in Europe, H2020 project, where I was responsible for semantic interoperability. And we built here EHR for Europe. And you can see so-called building bricks here, or a puzzle. And you can use these bricks for other applications and use cases. And it is a comprehensive electronic health record containing essential healthcare information intended for use in unscheduled cross-border care scenarios. And the IPS is the basis for many projects in the EU, which are related to medicine, like the current immunization record, or even clinical trials at EMA, the European Medicines Agencies. They use HL7 FHIR, and they work upon the International Patient Summary, cancer EHRs, or rare disease data sets. It will be widely used in Germany for the use case of the EHR of the gematik and within the scientific community. Besides that, the Robert Koch Institute is working with the International Patient Summary to for the lab result for the interface for the labs for COVID-19 test results. There are many challenges in today's world, and lack of interoperable data is also a major reason for the reproducibility crisis. In the last years, much attention has been given to this crisis in science, and many results of scientific studies cannot be replicated. So as a consequence, many journals like here Nature require that authors make their data available in a fair manner. The so-called FAIR principles can help to improve interoperable data sharing and publication. These principles were developed in 2015 by a group of stakeholders from academia, industry, and publisher. The principles comprise 4 main points: findability, accessibility, interoperability, and reusability. Each point is further specified in various subpoints, and the following slides show the principles and subpoints. So data should be findable. They should get assigned a global, unique, and persistent identifier, and they should be described with rich metadata. This metadata should include an identifier as well. And metadata or data should be registered or indexed in a searchable resource. It should be accessible. So data is retrievable by the identifier using a standardized communication protocol like HL7 version 2 or FHIR protocol, or the DICOM protocol should be open, free, universally implementable, and it should allow for an authentication and authorization procedure. And metadata should be accessible even when the data is now not longer available. It should be interoperable. It should use a formal, accessible, shared, and broadly applicable language for knowledge representation. It should use terminologies and include qualified references to other metadata. It should be reusable. Metadata are richly described with a plurality of accurate and relevant attributes. It should be released with a clear and accessible data usage license, provenance and governance, and meet domain relevant standards. So there is a difference, but there's a difference between fair and open data. Not all open data are fair. Just because data is publicly accessible doesn't mean that it's structured according to the fair principles, and not all fair data are open. Fair data can have clear rules for accessibility, so that only authorized persons or institutions can access the data. So how can we achieve fair data then? Standards and terminologies play a key role. This slide shows the most important standards. And here you can see the standards that you already know from the JIC, and I incorporated other standards into this JIC community, like the HBO and Orphanet for rare diseases, so that the standard community worldwide can work with these terminologies as well. So the HBO provides a standardized vocabulary of phenotypic abnormalities encountered in human diseases. And it plays a big role in many use cases and oncology use cases and use cases for rare diseases. So currently we are developing the pheno packets within the Global Alliance for Genomes and Health initiative. And because we need to hear data, which improves our ability to understand, diagnose, and treat diseases within the bioinformatics field. This is called pheno packets. So therefore, we need global and rich languages, so-called lingua franca. Fortunately, Germany is a SNOMED member since 2021. SNOMED International determines global standards for health terms and provides an ontology with over 450,000 medical concepts. And now we have the opportunity in Germany to work with LOINC, ICD, HBO, Orphanet, SNOMED, with more than 800,000 internationally agreed medical terms. Petra already introduced this project, and we won this in 2015. Name is Assess CT, and assessing SNOMED CT for large-scale eHealth deployments in the EU. And the EU asked us whether we need common language in the EU. We have 24 different languages and have to translate for the international patient summary the concepts within the summary. So we did this scientific work here together with the best terminologies here in Europe. And then we came up with some recommendations, like SNOMED is the best candidate for core reference terminology, or SNOMED should be part of an overarching European eHealth strategy, or SNOMED should be a part of an ecosystem of terminology. So we don't only just use SNOMED, but many more terminologies as you've seen before. It should be adopted incrementally, and we need a governance. And in Germany, this is the BfArM. And we try to make a framework right now for the translation of the whole SNOMED CT terminology, together with Switzerland and Austria, Italy, Luxembourg, and then we will have a translation very soon. So besides SNOMED, LOINC plays a leading role. LOINC provides concepts for vital signs and lab results, and with more than 90,000 terms, it includes also different domains like PROMs or radiology issues. So you see our publication here. I think two days ago, Alexander and Naveen gave this presentation on the LOINC conference, and this was about our challenges when we tried to submit new LOINC codes to LOINC, to the Registries Institute, because of the IP rights of the vendors. So the next project I like to introduce to you is NFDI for Health. And NFDI for Health creates a research data infrastructure. And the main objectives are the implementation of a federated health data infrastructure in Germany for searching and accessing healthcare data and health databases, to enhance data sharing and data linkage of personal health data in compliance with privacy regulations and ethics principles, to enable the development and deployment of new consent management mechanisms, and to foster data sharing and cooperation between clinical research. And therefore, we need a very high degree on interoperability. Though systematic overviews are readily available for trials metadata using registries such as the International Clinical Trial Registry platform on the left hand. The situation is much more complicated for epidemiological and public health studies. While some registries are available, like for epidemiological studies or the COVID-19 research registry, the scope and depth is mostly limited, and we want to change this. So improvements are necessary to bridge different fields of medical research with harmonized search options. So information should be accessible beyond mere study descriptions, such as study protocols or statistical analysis plans or instruments and metadata. So to enable findability of and access to structured data from registries, administrative health databases, clinical trials or epidemiological studies, and public health surveillance, we want to increase the visibility and accessibility of research data, enhance the reputation of scientists, and the resulting infrastructure will build bridges between user community and data holders. So aims are to facilitate data sharing, record linkage, harmonized data quality assessments, federated analysis of personal health data to enable development and deployment of new machine processable consent mechanism and innovative data access services by using the FAIR principles for scientific data management and stewardship. So these are our task areas from our core unit eHealth and interoperability. We try to build an interoperability roadmap for research data. We are doing the identification of standards, terminologies, and ontologies. We are using these standards and building value sets. There will be an implementation or many implementation guides built on 4EG FHIR, and we develop new data models here in this field. So coming to some other scientific studies, this studies is a review which was conducted in public and population health informatics literature, and the conclusion is that the intent of this bridging is to proactively identify, monitor, and improve a range of medical environment and social factors relevant to the health of communities. and therefore you need interoperability data exchange. The next study is about harmonization efforts between Denmark and Switzerland, and they did a review including 345 projects from Switzerland and Denmark, focusing on the identification of barriers and facilitators to health data harmonization. And the digitalization of medicine has led to many heterogeneous health data sets. And this process requires the harmonization of these data sets, which is a prerequisite to improve the quality, usability, and interoperability. And you can see here that the biggest barrier was the lack of data standard, the use of data standards here. The next study is about the clinical trial registry, which is based on fast healthcare interoperability resources. They designed and implemented a prototypical clinical trial registry in Erlangen. And this is based on HL7 FHIR standards, which automatically collect up-to-date information on studies conducted across 10 university hospitals in Germany. And 11 data elements were identified to communicate relevant study information. I don't know if you know that the new so-called DIGAs in Germany use FHIR for the metadata information as well. So beside that, there are several projects and platforms are within the field, and ICSNAT is very important for neuroimaging research. And here within this publication, we found out that ICSNAT can be extended to handle FHIR messages and store the resources data correctly. And this constitutes a further step towards fair data management of the platform ICSNAT. And it allows patient data sharing with healthcare systems supported in HL7 FHIR, such as we did in the HIMED platform. So here we tried to make an overview of instruments and resources using the Maelstrom taxonomy from Canada, because there are so many COVID-19 relevant instruments which were rapidly developed around the world, and we wanted to collect these information. And there's a huge heterogeneity between instruments, and this limits the comparability of these results in these studies. So we try to achieve a consensus metadata model to facilitate structured searches of COVID-19 studies. On the data, this database serves as central study metadata hub that secures compatibility with common trial registries. And here, within this study, we try to evaluate the suitability of SNOMED-CT in this COVID-19 studies. And the study was to evaluate the usefulness of SNOMED-CT for structured searches of COVID-19 studies. And therefore, we used the German Corona consensus dataset, GECCO, as an example. I will come to GECCO in the next slide. Suitability of the international standard SNOMED-CT was measured with a scoring system that you can see here with a rating 0 to 4. This is an ISO standard as well, 121564, and intercoder reliability of 2 independent mapping specialists was evaluated. So the resulting analysis showed that the majority of data items had either a complete or partial equivalent in SNOMED-CT. So the result was, or the study showed, that SNOMED-CT can be utilized for COVID-19 cohort browsing. This is GECCO, the German Corona consensus dataset, a standardized dataset for COVID-19 research in university medicine and beyond. Beyond means that even app vendors can use these resources, which are built up on FHIR, the base of FHIR, SNOMED-CT, and LOINC and ICD, and use these bricks to put it into their architecture of their apps. So this standard data set is a structured data set that uses international terminologies and health IT standards. And you can see the sections like symptoms or imaging section, vital signs or lab. And there are not only just sections, but terminologies which are binded to the sections as well. So we just lately won an H 2020 project, which is called Orchestra, and Orchestra will establish a new population-based cohort, including existing and new large-scale cohorts, to rapidly advance the knowledge on the control of SARS-CoV-2 infections, and we define here common data standards for data sharing in compliance with the GDPR, and the data standards are based on the German GECCO data set. So we use GECCO as a reference standard here in Orchestra. So coming back to Germany, to the Medical Informatics Initiative, we established a platform in the Medical Informatics Initiative to coordinate interoperability between 34 data integration centers of all universities. And here we have an interoperability working group with many activities, like the task force for the data integration center, or for core data sets, consent implementation, process models, governance, metadata, and so forth. And there's a new task force which deals with terminology services. Our goal was to have a so-called core data set with basic models and extensions. And this core data set is based on the International Patient Summary. So you have seen here the genetic test as a model in the extension part, and the genetic testing report will influence many other activities in the EU and in Germany. For instance, projects like the Harmonization project, or strategic plans of the Ministry of Health, like the Genome DE initiative, and even the 1 Million Genome Initiative of the EU. So all of our scientific work is based on the International Patient Summary here work, and we will expand then the International Summary with omics data. So two cross-site use cases upon the core dataset were established, polypharmacy and this project, the CORD-MI, and the aim of CORD-MI is to improve care and research in the field of care of rare disease. And as you can see here, we use the OrphaNet and the HPO within CORD-MI, and a data set, a European data set, which is based on the IPS as well. So our goal here is to specify and implement interfaces which are harmonized with the specs from KBV, Gematik, Robert Koch Institute, and to help these organizations to build new resources based on our scientific world. And here you can see the basic model diagnosis, and we allow new terminologies like OrphaNet or Alpha ID, put it and profile it with FHIR, and then you get code. And this is the way to interchange information here. So translational medicine depends on interoperability. Data from patient, hospital, outpatient care, regulatory data, and scientific data, data from registries must be brought together seamlessly. And this can aid the democratization of medicine, making health technologies globally accessible, improving healthcare, fostering innovations to enable translational medicine. And I like to say thank to my team, especially for Dr. Karina Forsek. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sylvia Thun, for this exciting presentation. And now we have time for discussion and questions. So if there are any questions, please copy them in the chat window. And I do not see any question right now there, so I would like to kick it off. And I would like to ask you, Sylvia, so what are the concrete activities that are ongoing at the Charité and the BIH in order to practically realize interoperability?
Yeah, very good question, Petra, because we have to implement those standards and not to talk just about these standards. And we just implemented LOINC into the lab of Labor Berlin. So our lab results are now semantically rich. And beside that, I'm working together with vendors in the intensive care unit to get the data out of the machines and try to specify the interface between the machine and the so-called COPRA system. Besides that, we have the health data platform, and we try to get all the data into our health data platform from the Charité systems.
Right, and there is a virtual research environment, of course, as well. That is a module of the HDP that also works on interoperability. And we now got a question from the audience. Are there licensing restrictions associated with SNOMED CT? And are there other medical ontologies that are more accessible?
Yeah, very good question. There are no restrictions anymore. It's for free. And you just have to get a license from BfArM. So every hospital and every vendor should go to the web page at BfArM and get a license from the BfArM, but there's no costs for it, no IP rights. Not no IP rights, but you can use it for free here in Germany since 2 months. And other terminologies are very interesting in this field. I think I already talked about OfferNet, HBO, LOINC, and they are sometimes it's not that easy to work with these terminologies because you don't know which terminology you should use within your specification. And then there are some rules, and you have to know these rules. So from the standardization bodies.
Right, thank you, Sylvia. There is a comment by Dr. Schepers, and he comments, ORFA coding in Charité starts in April 2021.
Super. Thank you, Josef.
So no other questions right now. Therefore, I would like to present you a second question, Sylvia. Could you please elaborate a little bit more about the XNet project? This I find, of course, interesting, and maybe you can tell a little bit more about this.
Yeah, XNet itself is a very huge project and community to improve neuroimaging. And XNet for itself is not an approved standard yet, but you can map the standard or the data fields from XNet to FHIR and leave the content within XNet. That's no problem. And this is what we try to search here on to find out. You have to find out here. And this is within the health data platform because you have to have a use and access committee. You have some restrictions, and we are working here in this field all together with the GBIT, and hopefully in some months, I don't know, you will have access to your data.
Okay, thank you very much, Sylvia. I do not see any other question, and I also do not have more questions right now. So I would like to thank you very much again for this very interesting presentation. And I would like to invite you now to the next lecture that takes place on April 23rd and will be given by Professor Dr. Simone Schuler. And with this, I would like to say goodbye and stay healthy and see you at the next BIH lecture.